Hi everyone, I'm Anne Riddell, and welcome to a new season of Arts in the City. We are kicking things off today with a high school reunion. 50 years ago, the mega hit show Grease opened on Broadway. A new book called Grease, Tell Me More, is full of stories and memories from cast members through the years. I recently spoke with the original Danny on Broadway, actor Barry Bostwick, and producer Ken Waissman, who discovered Grease in a Chicago theater. Ken, I know that you were the original producer and developer of the show. How did it come to be? Because if I remember correctly, it had something to do with a call from your college roommate.
That's right, Phil Markin. He had become a dentist. I get this call, and he said, there's a show playing. He said here at a community theater. It's in the basement of a trolley barn. They call themselves the Kingston Mines Theater Group. What I saw was my entire yearbook coming to life.
And the New York production was born.
So Barry, it's the 1970s and you audition for the role of Danny. And I love the story in the book about how you landed the part, about the drive-in movie scene.
Oh, how did I land the part, Ken? Did you want me, or did they have to talk you into me?
I wanted you.
So tell us about what happened in that drive-in movie scene, Barry.
Well, I think the audition was horrendous. I couldn't get the ring off my finger, so I just spontaneously went through my hair and got some grease off my hair, and it came right off.
Yeah, that became such a, part of the whole show, that moment.
He invented Danny Zuko.
That's the only reason I got I think that's how I got the part.
No, that's not the only reason, Barry.
No.
This feels a little bit like a reunion. And from what I understand, the book actually came out of a Zoom reunion that you guys all did during the pandemic. Is that right?
It was the first Zoom reunion, I think, during the pandemic. And somebody, Tom Moore probably knows exactly who, but somebody brought up the idea of there should be a book, and we're going to be approaching our 50th anniversary.
So, and Barry, of course, John Travolta is also associated with the role of Danny because he played Danny in the movie. But you talk about in the book how you really kind of created that character, created the quintessential Danny.
John who? Travolta? Well, Travolta was on the National Company. He played duty. I just tried to embody what I remembered from the 50s and what I had maybe lived through when I was in junior high, because I had the ducktail.
And you're being a little modest. Well, first of all, the original actor in a musical or even a play, the original person playing it really does create the role.
50 years, looking back, how do each of you feel now?
It's one of the high points of my career and my life.
It's been the most amazing experience because I've done many other shows, and some were, flops, and some worked and were hits. But no show has continued, whether it's actually playing on stage on Broadway or not, like this one. It's just always there. It just keeps living on.
Beyond Broadway, our hometown is famous for its museums, but did you know we have more than 200 of them? TikToker Jane August has made it her mission to visit every museum in the city. Our Donna Hanover caught up with Jane at one of her favorites.
On this installment of Jane Visits Every Museum in New York City, I'm in Long Island City at the Noguchi Museum.
That's TikTok and Instagram sensation Jane Visits Every Museum in New York City. The videos, which run about a minute each, are done by Jane August, who says the whole thing got started during the second COVID surge of February 21.
After a year of being inside, I was like, I need to see my friends. So we realized I can go visit museums, which was safe. Everyone had to wear a mask and social distance. We went to two museums. The first one were the Leslie Loman Museum and the New York City Fire Museum. And we were hyped because fire trucks! But this museum is so cool. The building's actually a renovated 1904 firehouse. And the first floor is just full of stuff, like rescue gear, old vehicles, tools, alarm boxes, and all my new boyfriends! I made those videos. I made a TikTok saying I'm going to visit every museum in New York City, and then within overnight I had 6,000 followers. So that's kind of how it started.
How many museums are we talking about?
When I realized that there's 160 or so, this is a great opportunity for me to see them all now. There's lots of people on TikTok who are making content about food, like restaurants and things to do and places to shop, but there weren't a lot of people focusing on cultural centers and museums, so I was able to kind of take that niche and run with it.
We went along as she returned to a favorite, Museum of the City of New York. Here and at other museums, officials have started inviting her because she reaches a coveted crowd, young adults.
I don't think I realized how fun and hip museums were, because when you're growing up, you hear about museums and your grandparents will take you to a museum. You're like, oh, museums. But then you go in, there's so many young people who are working and they're doing so many innovative things with exhibitions and teaching and art, which I think is really cool and able to showcase that.
Jane brings different friends along to help create her museum videos. She says her style is very improvisational.
Can you consist? Try me.
For each shoot, she makes sure the friend, in this case Lennox Hart Torres, gets a moment.
What I call like the wave, where my friends get to like do their hi, I'm the friend part. Doing theater in college, it's very collaborative, and I learned storytelling, which I think moving into video creation, I learned a lot of like, how do I piece together this story that flows?
Jane was raised in Arizona, although she always knew she would live in New York, where her parents grew up. She's visited more than 70 museums so far, and she has some favorites.
I love New York Historical Society. I think from the outside it looks like it's kind of like classic and probably not as interesting, like kind of oldish, but when you go inside, it's very hip and innovative and cool.
Our favorite exhibit was the Gallery of Tiffany Lamps, which has 100 gorgeous lamps from their history. There's also a cool designer lamp experience, which we love.
I love Poster House because I think being a person from the music industry, posters are so important, and seeing how they have a place in history is really cool. I love Museum of the Moving Image because movies, TV, I think pop culture has had such a huge part in my life, and that's really cool to see how it happens, especially in Kaufman Studios, which is connected to. And I love the Museum of Reclaimed Urban Space because that's history we don't really learn. It's activist history.
So they have so many small exhibits covering citywide bike rides, sustainability, squats, activist spaces, Occupy Wall Street, community gardens, and more.
Is she surprised to be a celebrity?
It's very surprising because I studied technical theater design, so always backstage stuff. So suddenly becoming a figure, like a public-facing person where people recognize me on the street is something that like I never expected.
So are you literally going to go for all the museums in New York City?
Yes, that is the commitment. I will be visiting them all. I think it's too late to turn back now.
Jane's skip to cap off each visit has become famous too. I'm Donna Hanover for Arts in the City.
Next, we take you to a celebration of Black composers and musicians in the world of classical music. Tina Beth Pena got a front row seat for the Color of Music Festival during a recent performance right here at the City University of New York.
I remember growing up and listening to Yo-Yo Ma and listening to Stephen Isserlis and listening to Rostropovich and listening to Janos Starker, all these different, wonderful, wonderful cellists, but I never saw anyone that looked like me.
Seeing Black musicians perform the works of Black composers like Chevalier St. George, Jose White, Coleridge Taylor, and Valerie Coleman is exactly what the Color of Music Festival set out to do when it was created back in 2012 in South Carolina.
If you think about how many people you have seen on a classical channel that look like me, you probably have to start really thinking deeply. And so our mission is to have those opportunities for this type of talent to be on stage.
Cellist Kenneth Law agrees.
It's so important to realize that excellence in composition, the excellence in singing, the excellence in instrumental playing has always been there in our community. And it's very important to emphasize it and to bring it to the forefront.
Celebrating the contributions of Black composers by having Black musicians perform their works is representation at its finest and a way to foster change, opportunity, and diversity in the world of classical music.
The opportunity to be part of colorful music is enormous because you can be a role model, you can maybe change somebody's day and let them know, yes, you can and you belong.
It is important to show everyone that classical music belongs to everyone in a way.
Romuald Grimbert-Barré, a violinist from the Color of Music Festival, is part of an octet of acclaimed classical musicians of African descent who perform a diverse classical repertoire nationwide.
The quality of their playing is on par, if not greater than, their contemporaries, but they do not get the opportunities as much as their contemporaries.
Diversifying other classical arts like theater or the ballet will hopefully be on the horizon as well. But in the meantime, the Color of Music Festival is reaching young people by visiting public schools and fostering an interest in classical music to kids of all backgrounds.
Excellence is excellence, no matter what color.
It's important, through the Color of Music to promote Black classical musicians and Black classical composers. So I think it's an amazing way to make it more universal.
For Arts in the City, I'm Tina Beth Pena.
If you've spent some time uptown, you've probably noticed the Highbridge Water Tower, which recently opened to the public. Susan Junn takes us inside for a tour.
Standing tall on a bluff overlooking the Harlem River in Washington Heights is a piece of the past that's been closed to the public for decades. That is, until now.
I really like to tell the story of fresh water in New York City through, the eyes of this tower.
Opened in 1872, the Highbridge Water Tower played a crucial part in the development of New York City.
The tower was built kind of as an extension of the High Bridge itself. And the reason the High Bridge was built was to supply New York City, which was only Manhattan at the time, with fresh, clean water.
An essential need in the city at a time when thousands died from a cholera outbreak due in part to dirty drinking water. Clean water was brought into Manhattan from the old Croton Aqueduct through pipes that crossed the Harlem River on the High Bridge.
They constructed the tower in order to supply water pressure.
The tower supplied fresh water to northern Manhattan for decades, until 1949 when it was disconnected from the system. After that, the tower sat shuttered for years until New Yorkers decided to revive the historic relic.
They had this great constructed building that was kind of iconic. It was featured in a lot of artwork around the area and became kind of a symbol for the neighborhood itself. So they wanted to use it for some purpose. And one of the first things they did was they installed a series of carillon bells at the top of the tower, and they used the water tower as a bell tower.
Sadly, the bells were removed, and in the 70s, the tower was shuttered again, until 2019 when a $5 million restoration of the tower began. It was completed in 2021 with a grand reopening this past fall.
How many steps are there here?
So we say there's 174 steps.
A figure that changes depending on who's counting. Most of the original steps line the cast iron staircase of the 200-foot-tall octagonal architectural gem, which is made up of granite and brick to match the bridge it was named after.
The High Bridge itself was modeled after kind of the famous Roman aqueducts.
For all its beauty, the architect of the tower is something of a mystery.
For a long time, it was suggested that the architect was John B. Jervis, who was a famous architect of the time. He designed the old Croton Aqueduct itself, and he was kind of listed and presented as the architect for this tower. But we now know that wasn't the case.
Some evidence points to a couple of unnamed city architects as the designers.
The best part of the tour, stunning 360-degree views of Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, and New Jersey.
At the top, where we now have the observation deck, where people can admire the views of New York City, there was a very large 47,000-gallon water tank.
The 150-year-old tower is now open to the public 2 times a month on a Saturday and Sunday. No reservations needed for the free tour. For more information, visit nycgovparks.org. For Arts in the City, I'm Susan Junn.
In 1945, 6th Avenue was renamed Avenue of the Americas. At one point, medallions depicting coats of arms from countries across the Americas were installed on 300 lampposts. Only about 20 of those remain today. Photographer Laura Fuchs captured some of that history in pictures. We can always count on Neil Rosen for Movie Scoop, and today he is back with more. He chatted with actor Patton Oswalt and Saturday Night Live alum Rachel Dratch about their new movie, I Love My Dad.
Did you delete your profile? It's kind of the main way I was staying in touch with you.
In the very funny offbeat comedy I Love My Dad, which remarkably is based on a true story, Patton Oswalt plays an estranged father who desperately wants to reconnect with his troubled son after he blocks him on social media and won't take his calls. Out of desperation, he catfishes his son by posing online as an attractive waitress who he met in a diner.
This was your idea. That was my ex-girlfriend. This is your child.
But things really start to spiral out of control when his son, played by writer, director, and star James Morosini, starts falling in love with this woman. And Oswald has to keep playing along with his self-admitted creepy charade.
You frequently play obsessed characters like here. Are you attracted to these kind of obsessive characters?
I do get obsessive about things. I have things that, books, films, travel, I tend to get very, very completist and obsessive about it. So even if I'm playing a character where it isn't an area that I'm obsessed with, it's the same fuel, it's the same spark. It's that same tunnel vision toward, the object of whatever your current obsession is.
Did you improvise any of this stuff? There's multiple takes in movies. Did you kind of mess around with this a bit?
What was amazing was we really stuck to the script, because what we realized early on was if I did improvise and ad lib, it would make my character look more comfortable than he deserves to be. My character is thinking of 8 things at once because he's lying to everybody.
How did they sell you on this?
Well, I mean, what sold me was how audacious the script was and how it was willing to fail. This movie could either worked, and it does work, but if it didn't work, it would have been a thing that would have inspired a million think pieces. Why was this even made? This is in the, and I love movies like that. I love movies that take that risk.
I know you first from stand-up. Is that still your first love?
Stand-up is the thing that brought me to the dance, to get poetic with it. But it was my entry into this world. And I love doing movies. I love doing TV. I love writing, films and television, but I do those so that I can do more stand-up. I will always go back to doing stand-up. I have a new special coming out in September from Netflix. I love the form so much. It never feels like work for me. I can't get enough of it.
Rachel Dratch plays Oswald's girlfriend, who tries to help him with his dilemma.
Could you call him and be the voice?
What are you wearing?
Sweatpants and a Red Sox shirt. What about you?
Just a dress, no panties.
Rachel, I've been watching you for years, from, all the TV work and SNL. Did you always know you were funny?
I always gravitated towards the funny parts. And then I grew up watching SNL. My dad was really funny. My friends were really funny. So it was just like funny was sort of like revered in my whole circle, whether it's family, friends. And then I like was really into watching SNL. And then I was into doing school plays, but I always like, oh wait, like, I don't know that I could make it as an actor, but like, I think I could make it as the funny person in the play. So then that sort of snowballed from there. And then I started doing improv in college, which is sort of a combo of like doing the school plays and being the class clown. You put those together and that's improv comedy sort of. So yeah, I was attracted to the funny.
With Patton Oswald and Rachel Dratch, for Arts in the City, I'm Neil Rosen.
We are not just arts in the city, we're also arts under the city. Barry Mitchell introduces us to a musician who's been making subway riders smile for more than 20 years with a saw.
My name is Natalia, Saw Lady Paruz, and I've been playing in the subway with Music Under New York for 25 years.
You play the saw. Who are your favorite bands?
The Carpenters, MC Hammer, and 9 Inch Nails.
Hey, you need a sense of humor when you play the saw, but Natalia is an internationally respected artist.
I play everywhere that I'm invited. I think that out of all the preeminent stages of New York City, and I have played at Lincoln Center, Madison Square Gardens, for me, the New York City subway is one of the most important stages. On stage, I can only play for people who can afford a ticket. In the subway, I have the potentiality and the ability to play for each and every New Yorker and visitor. Playing in the subway over 25 years, I have seen a lot of changes. People started wearing headphones, so they don't hear the sounds that they're walking by. Also, the cell phone was invented. All of a sudden, everybody is watching me through a screen. I wasn't used to that. I was used to, face to face. So things have changed.
Natalia arrived in New York at age 20 to study with the Martha Graham Dance Company, until an accident derailed that dream.
My entire childhood, I was geared towards dancing. I was teaching dance. Until one day I was coming back from Lincoln Center. I crossed Central Park South and I was hit by a car. That was the end of my dance career.
To cheer her up, Natalia's parents took her on a trip to Austria, home of her favorite movie.
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
Sound of Music, it was my favorite as a child.
And while in Austria, they took in a live variety show featuring a guy playing the carpenter's saw.
And I was mesmerized. And for the first time since the accident, I actually felt passionate, fire, about something that wasn't dance. And the reason why, the entire blade creates wave-like shapes in the air. So it's very physical, it's very visual, it's like dance. People come up to me and they say, oh, did you invent this? And I'm like, no, it's actually really old. As saw playing was traditional in liturgical music, I continue this tradition and I play at churches often.
Heavenly saw melodies can transport us to a place of tranquility. And we're back. Natalia's performances are all officially approved by the MTA.
Music Under New York is a wonderful blessing for buskers. They hold auditions. When you pass the audition, they give you, they schedule you in particular spots in the subway that wait for your arrival.
And for Natalia, tips are always welcome, but not really the point.
For me, being a busker is not a job, it's not an occupation, it's what I do for love.
That is our show for today. Thanks so much for joining us. A quick reminder to check us out on Facebook and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Anne Riddell. We leave you now with a little more music from the Saw Lady. See you next time.